in the first clip, Anna Burns-Francis there asks the question quite simply, what was the hikoi all about? And I think she asked Shane Jones that first, and he didn't give an answer, and I thought we won't waste our time on that. Let's just go straight to Debbie and find out what the hikoi was all about.
What do you know? I think, first of all, I'm not surprised that the Prime Minister doesn't know what it's about or what Māori think. I don't think he's engaged with any, given the scale of some of the leaders presenting today. But what we have is a government that has offended at least 20% of the population, and which is surprising given the percentage of New Zealand First and Act don't meet that percentage. So, again, we've got Te Pāti Māori back in our whānau Māori. We have a large mandate of Māori. We were able to tautoko what's been said today, and it is a pushback against this government's anti-Māori policy platform. Boom.
So there you go. We now know what it was about, a pushback against this government's anti-Māori platform. We'll keep going on this because the next part of the conversation is a couple of minutes, and they started talking about this government, accusations that this government was the most racist government we've ever had. I don't know how that lands. I don't know the technicalities of that. I imagine governments in the 1850s were pretty fucking bad, but that's where this conversation is at the moment, and that's where these two pick up and the sparks start to fly.
Oh, look, it's theatre. A lot of the people that are participating,
is it theatre?
not only in this process,
they don't have a right to back that up with something?
No, what I'm saying is that on October the 14th, everyone voted.
I love how Debbie's just looking at him. One of the things that we saw in this election when Debbie was on a debate stage with Marama Davidson, with Winston Peters, just calling him matua, kumatua, and they were just kind of referencing him like he's older than us, but he's a bit of a silly old roper. It's exactly the same vibe that's going on here.
And we've laid out our manifesto, and Debbie's a professional politician. I'm a professional politician. People have the right to protest, but know this from me. The Māori Battalion went to Greece. That's where the word democracy comes from. And they fought for the principles of liberty and freedom. And for this type of narrative that's coming from Debbie and Rawiri, where they advertise the protest with 2 cocked pistols, that is gross. It reminds me of what Sinn Féin did. Now, Sinn Féin, for a long period of time, refused to take their seats in Parliament in Ireland. Let's see how long Debbie and them sit outside.
Well, you seem to have a lot to say, Chewie. We'd like to jump in before we hear from Debbie.
What the fuck? Did he just go through the Māori Battalion to get to the Greeks inventing democracy?
Yep.
Wow. That's amazing. And then related to Pāti Māori to Sinn Féin.
Yeah. Talking about my people now, isn't he?
Absolutely. Out the gates. What the fuck?
It's an interesting conversation to talk about Sinn Féin. So I've told this story before, but I had second cousins in the IRA. Like, I never met them. But my mum would go back to Ireland and went back to Ireland. Like, I remember her going in 1988 because I went to Expo over in Brisbane and we met up there. I was just a wee shade of a lad. And the Sinn Féin which became a political party. And then Jerry Adams got some changes through. It was a pushback against, I guess, the British coming in and saying, this is our land and you can't come on. And like, whilst there was some horrific things, and I've told the story before about my second cousins, had gone through enough of a generation that they were just hating of the English because they were hating of the English. Lots of them had forgotten why. But they were a pushback against a government coming in to take over the land that they have. So I don't know if it's necessarily a terrible analogy, other than obviously all the car bombs, but just the spirit of this is ours.
I think it's a good analogy, just not in the way that he thinks it is.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Like, because here he's saying like, oh, Sinn Féin, they refuse to sit in Parliament and that sort of thing. They're a political arm of the IRA. So when they were outside of government, they were doing car bombings. So are they saying, is he saying that Te Pāti Māori should sit outside of Parliament and do car bombing?
I think what he's trying to say. I think what he's trying to say.
Skip that step and gone straight into Parliament.
No, I think what he's trying to say is they wouldn't even take the baubles of office. They sat outside. These guys are going to sit on the inside and get all the baubles. It's like, I think actually technically, I mean, when the Sinn Féin got into Parliament, as I said, under Jerry Adams, they were distancing themselves from the IRA action. Now, obviously, they were intertwined, but once they got to that point, it wasn't quite the same. But yeah, I guess Alan might have nailed it, is that he was comparing them to terrorists. But
Yeah.
then,
it's so weird. Like, I might be jumping the gun a little bit here. A lot of people, and please don't go out and read comment sections on TVNZ news stories. There's some vile racist shit floating around. But what I see this protest as is straight out the gates, the government have come out with some stuff that is just, it's bad for Māori, just across the board. Anything to do with Māori, we're going to downplay it, roll it back, change the wording. It's all gone and it's all targeted at you guys. And what Te Pāti Māori have done is mobilized an enormous amount of people with almost no notice.
Yep, 100%.
Got them on the streets to say, this is how many people see this as a button issue, enough to get us on the streets. Look at all of us. And whenever you see a protest like this, you are not seeing all the supporters. You are seeing the people that either care enough to get out there or are able to get out there.
Well,
and if there's not a bigger signal in the very early days of the government to go, we're not on board with this, then I can't think of a better way to do it.
Like, speaking of TVNZ and speaking of, not that we were speaking of radio stations and talking about, what representation you see versus what there is. I know that they used to consider for every complaint that came in, it would be considered 7 people. So that would be 7 people who wouldn't complain. So therefore, you probably multiply that by a factor for how many people won't get out on the street. So if you see 1,000 people out there, that may represent 20,000 people, 10,000 people that if they would sort of thing. Anyway, let's keep going because Debbie is about to respond.
And I'm not surprised that Shane doesn't understand modern Māori art.
Okay.
Well, we've got a long period of time to have these debates, and, we're professional politicians.
Well,
I put my credentials up along with my leader against anyone within Māoridom, and that's why we're in the government.
Now, we need to be really clear. And look, I understand that one classes himself as a professional politician for a certain genre, but the reality is we did not get, and certainly Shane and ACT did not get a Māori mandate. And that is something that we have been privileged and honoured to have. And we will heed the call of our people, unlike some who dine off their whakapapa, and we will continue to push that forward to this government. The kaupapa that we have is a government that has enjoyed the division and the fact that Māori don't have rights and interests, that we don't have inequities to address, and the fact that they're comfortable pushing us back 50 years is not going to be tolerated.
We're an economic nationalist party. And I can tell you this,
right.
Debbie trades on victimhood. And that has become the kaupapa of the Māori Party, which erodes New Zealand's unity and integration. And I'm all about putting that kaupapa out the back paddock.
And Debbie does not accept men who sit there and bully her and stand over her, and will never. And we are women who have now enjoyed our own views, enjoyed our own aspirations, and we will continue to push back against this type of misogynistic attitude that comes with old dinosaur politicians.
Well, look, we shouldn't allow these debates to degenerate into personal attacks.
Well, you did,
If
Shane.
you bring the kaupapa of victimhood, stand, be prepared to be challenged.
No. You are just used to bullying women, and you don't like the fact that I don't accept that. Never will, never have. Kia ora.
Booyah! Now, just apart from anything else,
I've been put in a small box.
I'm
in a little box. What have I done?
What was that dance? Big box, small
Equality.
box. Apologies about that. Now, just one of the logical things, right? That Shane Jones was like, whoa, if we're gonna, he didn't use these words, but start shouting nasty names at each other after he called them terrorists. Like, hello, let's just figure this out. There you go, Chewy. What are your thoughts?
I'm stunned that this is this his first time meeting like I don't mean this disparaging, a stroppy woman, because as far as I know, like New
strong.
Zealand,
strong woman, better.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I just trying to form my words here. There are so many Māori women that would not put up with Shane Jones's bullshit anywhere on this earth, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like he has had a privileged life to get to his age and have not run into one. I love that Debbie's there.
Yeah.
I love that she's absolutely flaying this stuff. And one of the things that I absolutely love of this new iteration of Te Pāti Māori is that they are just dropping bombs whether people like it or not. I think people are seeing that authentic voice, and I think that it is not exclusively being received by Māori either. I think there is a large portion of young New Zealanders that see this and see the treaty as something that is important, that see the racism coming out of the government for what it is, and they don't want to stand for it. And if Te Pāti Māori can weaponize those people to get them involved in this process and turn around next election and go, this is why it's important. If you didn't vote last time, you have to vote this time.
Yeah.
I think if they can maintain, like they've come out of the gates with such power, if they can keep doing it. And I think the reason that we've had so many stories and so many comments from a range of government ministers, going from Christopher Luxon thinking it's all just not fair on him, to people concerned trolling the use of language and the logo that they used and all of this just pearl clutching nonsense, rather than seeing this for what it is. It's gonna be interesting.